some guy just called me a socialist in a comment. He's obviously a mind reader, because all I put to him was, in his video he'd made about Rochdale, he'd massively oversimplified the situation. And, you know, he was misleading people. He didn't know a damn thing about this place. But because he'd visited a couple of times and he'd seen some brown faces kicking around Deeplish, you know, around the train station, which is likely the only place he knows well in Rochdale, he seems to think that this is a segregated community. It's weird that, you know. I went to the cinema on Saturday and I got picked up on the way. I got a taxi. And obviously, you know, Pakistani taxi driver comes along. And it's a matter of, you get talking to him, and what does he want to talk about? Oh, he wants to celebrate George Galloway having won, right? Do you know what he gave a shit about? He didn't give a shit about Gaza. George Galloway's actually gone off on the wrong foot, making it all about Gaza. It's like, give the population of Rochdale a chance to vote for someone who'll stick it to the council. They'll vote for him. That's what it is. It's like, this town voted for Brexit like 60-40. Because we don't get a say at all in politics. Elections don't actually matter around here. Our votes do not count. And then suddenly when our votes count, wow. It's like you're dealing with Rochdalians. I don't care what colour they are. You leave weapons lying around and we'll use them. It's what we're like. That's what this town is. So it's like, George runs on Gaza, that gets him a small amount of support, but then he gets to talking to the local people, and it's a matter of, we need rid of this council, it's corrupt, crime's out of control, gangs. Everyone's telling him about gangs. Everybody knows about gangs. So a taxi driver, what's his issue, right? And it's a matter of, well, he was a psych lad. He's from psych. That's where I was raised. That's where he lived. It's not a white area. It's just a place where people live. It's like, I don't get this, you know. I was born and raised in this town. It's like, first football team I ever played, an organised team, it's like there were 5 of us who were like white kids and the rest of them were Pakistanis. And we played football together. They were great. They were cracking lads. It's like, they'd been raised better than we had. Why? Well, they all did really well at school. They're the same guys. I could sort of rhyme off the names now and tell you where they are now, and it's a matter of, oh yeah, he's got a business. One of them's like the dealer principal of a car dealership in Oldham. Another one went on to be a doctor. And these are Pakistani kids in the same town. They were my mates. It's like I was raised with these guys. And then it's a matter of, I went to Catholic schools as well, so there wasn't so many Pakistanis in the Catholic schools, but everybody else went to, you know, the state schools, and they were in the same classes as Pakistani kids. And guess what? They were the mates. It's like, we all have got friends. We all know better than this nonsense. And we all know that there's scum. We all know, and there's basically cunts of all colour in this town. Criminals. Those who would exploit a situation. Those who would do harm to others because they enjoy it. Of all colours. But it's a matter of, there's a section that only highlights it when it's done by Muslims, Pakistanis. It's like, oh, them again. So it's like, chap I were talking to, he's like, they mess it up for everybody, those bastards. And I'm like, oh yeah, have you noticed that they use the road at the other side of the common? They're all parked up at night, all the drug runners are all sat there in the cars, smoking weed, waiting for the phone call for them to go and drop off drugs somewhere, and they use it like a car park, and there's nothing anyone can do to get rid of them because the police won't do anything, because it'd be like, they've got a right to all hang around on the road. They have a right to use my old neighbourhood as like a racetrack. They don't live round there, but that's where they decide to be. It's like, ridiculous things happen round there where those lads sometimes decide to have a bit of a drag around the common. They drive their cars all over the common. And it's like, yeah, it's like chap I'm talking to is talking about the ridiculous car crashes that happen when someone hits a tree or hits a bench. It's like all the time you'll see abandoned vehicles on the common that have been razzed around, and it's like, what are they? Oh well, they're all like Audis reported stolen. So you look at it, you look at the wreck on the common where they've fucked the car up and it doesn't go anymore. They've used it as a field car and abandoned it. And you go home and you type in the reg number in the old database on the internet, and it says this thing was reported missing years ago, or else it's a ringer. And then it's a matter of, oh well, the police won't do anything about it, and the people who live around there have had enough. It's like they used to do the same thing round here, but it's a matter of, oh well, they stopped doing it round here. Why? Because the locals had words, and there's locals round here who can have a word with you, and you never come back. I'm just saying. It's like there's things we don't talk about round here by way of underground muscle, and there are those who've got it and those who haven't. So it's like the place sorts itself out. And it's like taxi driver, he's not bothered about Gaza. He's bothered about, I take my kids out playing on that common and we get there and it's all ripped up by these idiots driving around. That's what he was bothered about. He was bothered about crime and Rochdale being a safe place to raise his kids. It's like, is that unreasonable? It's not, is it? That's what them are the stories you get to hear. There's no one. It's like he set off on that foot with the old Gaza thing. George making an error. George didn't have any idea just how messed up this place is, how corrupt it is, and how talking about the bad things that happen round here oh, you're a troublemaker. You're looking to make trouble. You're looking to score points. And it's like, oh, so those of us who are concerned about lawlessness, we get called, far right. That happens to us in Rochdale. Nobody wants to hear it. They're like, you start to talk about something's got to be done about these drugs gangs. And they'll be like, It's like, I'm not so stupid as to think you can ever eliminate drug dealing, right? But you can lock up all the ones who are a fucking public nuisance. You can lock up all the ones who are indiscreet. And then, right, why don't we have it as to where we have it? On the face of it, there's no gangsters. And that everybody who wants to partake in the drug business will be almost rewarded for being discreet. Because you can never end it. You can never stop it. It's impossible. Those who promise to do it are telling you lies. It's not possible. We had a cop once in this town who said, drug dealing has ended in Rochdale. I can announce that the end of drug dealing in Rochdale. We've made significant busts. And I'm on phone to people I know saying, you read this in Observer? Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's like they've seized probably enough cocaine and heroin and weed that would to last a weekend. You've busted out one drug dealer. You've disrupted the supply of drugs in this town for about 2 days, and you're a copper who's proudly saying we have ended drug dealer in Rochdale. They're all in jail, and it's like, really? You tell people that? It's a joke. And that's the sort of shit we have to eat. Oh no! The police have ended it. It's really. Okay, so from where I'm sat, I can hear cars half a mile away doing 70 and 80 miles an hour on roads designed for 30. Hammering it around, and when you get to see these cars, they're all the same cars. Sat there, driving around, and then sat there waiting for the nod to go and make a delivery, and then they set off lawless, don't they? Obviously, they don't give a shit. They've got drugs in the cars. You get it where the cops have set up a speed trap on Spotland Road yesterday. In view of complaints we've had about people speeding at 10 o'clock in the morning, we've set up a speed trap on Spotland Road. Right? And I'm commenting, I'm like, you know, the worst offenders are probably all still in bed. Why don't you try doing that at 10 o'clock at night? You'd catch loads. And you know what? When you caught them, they'd have drugs in the car. You'd have a reason to hold them. You would have a reason to charge them. You would have a reason to take down their particulars, find out who their friends are. Never gets done, ever. They don't do it. There's no money to spend on that. It's like the cops are run by OCP. There's no money to spend on that. And then you get the thing with it where it's a bad arrest. Oh shit, we can't nick him. Why? Because he's someone important's nephew and it'll look bad. Let him go. That's the place we're in. That's what people are bothered about. You talk to anyone in Rochdale where they say, what's the problem? And they'll say, the lawlessness. And they'll say, my kids see this. That's what the kids, so this is a bad example. These guys know they can do whatever they want and no one's going to stop them. And it's not just Pakistani criminals. We had before I've not heard so many reports of it now, but before the lockdown, we used to have situations where gangs of white guys, not Pakistanis, driving around in vans, just marauding. What? Yeah, any opportunity they could see to steal or to rob someone, they'd just take it. They were just driving around looking to earn. So they were stealing things. They were robbing catalytic converters, jacking up cars, stealing things, just driving around. And then the thing was, the local talk was, if the police were on patrol, they could find these guys driving scrap heaps who were just stealing anything that they can find, like magpies. It's everywhere. We haven't seen so much of that white van marauding recently. It's quietened down. So it's still going on. They've probably just changed the colour of van. Place is preyed upon by organised gangs of criminals. And they get desperate. They start stealing ridiculous things. That's what people are bothered about. So when George has turned up and I'm doing it for Gaza, he's got talking to the local activists and the local people, and they're like, no, the real problem's the drugs gangs. They're messing it up for all of us. They'll say, Pakistani drugs gang. And it's always like, our community is always the one that gets shamed for all the criminality, because quite a few of the criminals are Pakistanis. But a hell of a lot of them aren't. It's like this place is lawless. And why has it become lawless? Well, people have seen others get away with doing whatever they want, and they just do the same because they're not so smart. And if you know you're not going to get busted, why not? If you're one of them people who doesn't ever feel guilty about anything, why not? So, just to let you guys know, on Saturday, I had a telephone call from George Galloway's assistant asking, well, he requested a meeting with me. George Galloway has requested a meeting with me. So, I haven't heard anything yet, although his assistant's been in touch saying, have you heard anything yet from George? I'm like, well, no, and I don't expect to hear anything. He was only being sworn in London yesterday. You can't be everywhere at once. So, my move, right? Like, you don't want to talk to me. You want to talk to this guy, Rajamir from Oldham. You want to talk to him. You don't want to talk to me. You want to talk to him. He needs support. He needs George's support to be able to become Oldham's MP, which is what he's set himself to do, and to also be rid of the council in Oldham for the same thing that's happened in Rochdale to happen 5 miles down the road. And it's a weird old thing as to where the Rochdale Labour Party and the Oldham Labour Party, they're just the same party. They're the same people, they're the same gang. They don't recognise the borders of our towns, so why should we? So like, if you want to continue with your your crusade against the Labour Party, talk to this guy. So it's like, they're like, right, fine, yeah, we will do. So it's a matter of now, it's not been settled yet, but to press, Roger Meir will be joining the alliance. He'll be joining forces with George Galloway's organisation. Why? It's not about Gaza, as they've said. It's about the Labour Party. Gaza's just a weapon that's been left lying around that can be used against them to show them up as hypocrites, because, let's have it right, usually when the Labour Party are campaigning in Rochdale, they're talking to they don't talk about local politics, they talk about national and world politics and blame the government for all of their shortcomings. That's what they do. They don't talk about local issues, and if you talk about local issues, they just brand you as like a troublemaker. Oh, you're one of them, are you? This, from me, as to where it's not so long ago, a Labour canvasser who came to my door, who I was very dismissive of, told me that he had powerful friends and promised to have me killed. That's a Labour Party canvasser in Rochdale, threatened to have me killed. And I'm like, oh, why don't you do it? Like, right now. Why don't you give it a go? And it's like, he was right out of luck as well, because he was only a small fella and he was pretty young. He wasn't a Pakistani, he was some like white kid with a bleeding heart. Believed everything that had been said in the likes of The Guardian and The Mirror. We've got to do something about the racism and homophobia. Okay. We've got to do something about climate change. Okay. And you're canvassing for the Labour Party in Rochdale with a council election coming up. Really? And then we exchanged a few more words and he said he was going to have me killed. That's a Labour Party canvasser. That's not unusual. It was rather funny actually, because the lad who lived in the flat upstairs, he had the window open and he heard every bit of this conversation, and he came to the window and he's like, you having any trouble with that lad, John? It's like, do you need any help? I'm like, no, I've got this well in hand, mate. We laughed him out of the garden. Laughed him. Like, ha 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 ha, you're going to kill me. And he's like this at the end of my garden. He's like this. That's a Labour Party canvasser in Rochdale. Give me this. Give me this. Give me the old. You're a dead man. Like, really? I don't scare so easy. That just made me laugh, because it's a matter of, you're not the first person who's mouthed off to me. You know, I'm from Rochdale. I know the difference between mouthing off and trouble, and you ain't trouble, mate. You ain't it. And it's like, and there's a thing, you know, you touch me and word gets around, you will have a problem. Why? Because I've got friends. My friends are a lot scarier than yours. But that's what it's like here. My next door neighbour ran for council, got elected, but the local Labour activists told all the local Muslims that he was a Jew and gay. Don't vote for him, he's a Jew, and we've heard that he's a closeted homosexual. Really? That's what they said? So it's like, it doesn't work and the word comes back, so someone's pulled up Greg and said, oh, I hear you're gay and a Jew. What? Who told you that? Oh, Labour Party. That's how they operate. So it's like, okay, do you understand me now? It's not about Gaza, it's about Rochdale. It's about Rochdalians. It's about lawlessness. It's about people taking the piss, and a council that enables it by never speaking of it. never speaking of it, and actually silencing those who do. That's the problem. So when George has come here, he's gone and knocked on doors, and that's what everyone's told him. And who's told him that? The Muslim population of Rochdale, who are sick of being tarred with the same brush as these criminals. They've had enough. They've had enough of the Labour Party. They've had enough of the gangs. So it's like, I'm going to show you a video that Raja's just put out. Now look at Raja. Look at his face. What can you tell me about Raja?
The final council meeting of the...
He's a Pakistani man with a Oldham accent. He's not Muslim. He's not Pakistani. He's Oldham. What does he care about? He wants the Labour Party out. Why? Why does he want the Labour Party out? He wants them out because they cover up crime and are associated with dangerous criminals who they have doing the dirty work for them. Have a listen to this fella. It's like, how bothered do you think he is about Gaza? The only reason Gaza's a weapon is because the Labour Party around here actually campaign on things like solidarity with the Palestinians, solidarity on Kashmir. They actually campaign on that. That's what they bring to the doorstep. They bring to the doorstep what the central government have done, because they're not accountable for their actions. They won't be held accountable for their actions in this town. Nothing that they have ever done has been wrong. And anything that ever went wrong, it was to do with the central government cutting the funding. The government aren't giving us enough money. Oh, so that's like an excuse that can be used forever. It's the same as the NHS excuse. The NHS excuse is, if only we had more money. So you throw more money at it. And then it's, if only we had more money. So you throw more money at it. If only we had more money. So they throw money at it. It's like an endless excuse. They can always blame the central government, saying that they don't have enough money. Not that they're wasting it. Not that they've spent a fortune on ridiculous things. Never that. So this is Raja. Raja is going to run against is it Jim McMahon in Wrighton. He's the local Labour MP who formerly was leader of the council, who's just corrupt, silences people, is in bed with local criminals. So it's like he hates him and he hates the Labour Party for what they do. And he's been plotting and scheming to bring the communities of the town together as Oldhamers, not along the lines of race, not along the lines of religion, along the lines of, do we live in a civilized place with laws, or don't we? What is it? So have a listen to this guy speak. Because so when George Galloway got in contact with me, what do you think I did? I gave him this guy's contact details and said, forget me, go and make friends with this guy and support him in Oldham. So suddenly, the network, because I can't be the only person doing that. I can't be the only person who's saying, Mr. Galloway, no, I've got your ear. It's not, you might be looking to recruit people to work for you. You want this guy. Not me, this guy. Listen to Raja.
Of the year before the elections is next Wednesday. So that's Wednesday the 13th at 6 o'clock. I will be at that council meeting. I'm encouraging as many of you as possible to be also at that council meeting. And I know we've got friends and allies from other communities supporting their own causes who will also be at this council meeting next Wednesday. I'm hoping we all can go and we can also show some level of solidarity of how, no matter which community we come from, we've been failed by Arud Shah's Labour Party. I am going in particular because I have worked with the Failsworth Independent Party That's correct. I've worked with the Failsworth Independent Party in putting together a motion on the CSE. We've gone before and put motions in for a public.
What's CSE? Child sexual exploitation. This is an Oldhamer with brown skin fighting for working class white girls that find themselves in the company of these gangsters and find themselves getting passed around, and everybody turns a blind eye to it. Goes on to this day. People say, well, the Rochdale grooming gang scandal, it was all 10 years ago. It's like, well, it's happening right now, and it's not just Pakistanis who do it. There's a lot of it about. But we only really, we don't talk about it at all, but when we do talk about it, it's always Pakistanis doing it. And it's like, that's a bit racist, isn't it? And it's like, well, yeah, it is. That's a common objection you'll hear from people in Rochdale when people throw in their faces to, well, you're a Pakistani, so you're in with them groomers, and they're like, you what? You know, you can't insult somebody any much more deeper than saying that they're some kind of rape apologist or grooming apologist. That's, in my book, enough to get you a beating. But that's what they do. People who aren't from here, they talk about Rochdale as being, oh, that's grooming gangs. Grooming gangs. Oh, it's full of grooming gangs. It's full of goons. It's full of pervs. It's full of rapists. Full of paedophiles. It's like, there's a few. But the only time that we ever bring it up is to hang out Pakistanis. And that'd be part of the mechanism that puts Labour in power, because suddenly you'll get it where someone like Tommy Robinson will turn up in the town. And then every fucking idiot in the town will turn up, oh, and it'd be a matter of, you look at them and you're like, I know that guy from when he was a kid. Didn't he go to Higher Birch? What, the special needs school? Yeah. What kind of activity goes on at that school? Child sexual exploitation, but done by white people, you know. The schools around here for special needs kids were like brothels for decades for the local establishment to use and molest kids. So it's like the victims then become these fanatics who are like, oh, Pakistani grooming gangs. It's like, well, you were a victim too, weren't you? Yes. Why don't you go after the person who abused you? It's funny how that works. Nobody wants to see Daddy in trouble because they don't want to get the guy in trouble. They don't want to give statements and they don't want to go back there. So what they do is they virtue signal and appear to be, oh, we'll do something about the Pakistani grooming gangs. And you tar them all with the same brush and you start calling people who are just straight up people living their lives. Suddenly they're enabling grooming. They're rapists themselves. It's like they turn up. The Labour Council, the idiots turn up. The Tommy Robinsons and the like, and the local incarnations of him turn up, and they go round and tar all the Pakistanis with the same brush. And then Labour come along and say, if you don't vote for us, you'll end up with these guys in power, and they're going to collectively punish you for what's been done to kids. Vote for us. It's a choice between us or Tommy Robinson. You're going to have to vote for us. They scare the local Muslim population with far-right idiots that they use as poster boys. It's like when idiots turn up in Rochdale to protest against this stuff, it's like, you do a hell of a job for the Labour Party, don't you? They'll never say it. It's probably, they are too stupid to realise they're being played. So to suggest they're being played, that would mean they're stupid, wouldn't it? And no one likes being called stupid. Let's listen to Raja, what he's got in mind for next week in Oldham. This is... I'll just put it to you, this guy's good.
inquiry. On each occasion it's been blocked in one way or another. This motion is specifically for a Telford-style judge-led inquiry. Now I'm going for two reasons. Three reasons. One is because the Fellsworth Independent Party have bravely come forward yet again and put forward a motion. Remember, the big team, Mark Hinds, Maggie Hurley, were all supposed to do this. None of them did. Indeed, Warren, did I say a different date? It is Wednesday the 13th. It's next Wednesday. Yeah, it's not this Wednesday, it's next Wednesday. The Failsworth Independent Party have taken forward a motion that we had hoped the Royston Independents and the big team, the Shaw and Crompton Independents and Sandra Ball, all known as the Independent Group, would have took forward. They have failed to take this motion forward despite making promises on the doorstep last April, May, in the lead up to to what got them elected. My information is that these people now believe that CSE is not an issue on the doorstep and they don't need to campaign on behalf of it.
Yeah, chancers who will get themselves into political power by telling the people round here, we'll do something about the pervs, we'll do something about the groomers, and then they get elected and then they say, no, we're not going to do anything about it. It's done with, it's over. Can we just not move forward? So it gets exploited by all sides as a political weapon. And it's always something that's in history. It's not something that goes on all the time.
No, I'm not joking. They're claiming CSE is not an issue on the doorstep and they no longer need to campaign on behalf of it. Perhaps because they've each got in for 4 years, they feel they don't need to campaign. You'll have to ask them when should they come knocking on your door. I went to the Fellsworth Independent Party in desperation to give Brian Hoban credit. He met with me, he agreed immediately, and we worked together, and there is a motion in for a Telford-style judge-led inquiry. Now, it's not as powerful as a public inquiry, but that's by the by for now. The main difference with this is, one, it can be brought up and put on the agenda because it's not a repeat of the public inquiries. First of all, we can get it on the agenda of the last council meeting before the elections. And secondly, this inquiry, a Telford-style judge-led inquiry, is in the gift of the council. The council can vote on it and say yes, and they can instruct the council officers to immediately start the process to which to appoint a judge and a panel and let the judge appoint a panel and so on, and replicate the Telford-style process. That is entirely in the gift of Arud Shah and her council. And I would like to go on record right now to thank the Failsworth Independent Party, Brian Hoban, Lucia Ray and Neil Hindle for supporting this motion. So that's why.
How would you look if you'd have told Roger to go and stick it when Roger came on his little channel and said, I approached them to put this motion forward and they told me to stick it up my ass? How might that look? It's like they can't do that, or they can't be seen to do that. So, of course, it's like most right-minded people in this world, right? If they know that kids are being exploited like that, they'd probably want them dead. They'd want them hanging for it. It's a big deal. It's wrong. We know it's wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong. Even those who take part in it know it's wrong. So basically Roger putting this on the table so the Labour Party vote it down. He's got no hope that that's going to pass. The Labour Party will vote it down because they've got a majority. You can't stop them doing anything they want. They will vote that down and throw it out. Oh, we don't want any more bad publicity for the town. What if it comes back at us? We've ignored this for so long. We're going to be seen to be on the hook for this. We can't have that. Right, what we need to do is we'll vote it down and we'll set up Raj as racist, because they call him racist. They call him racist, and he gets harassed, right? A lot. And the harassment comes from the council, who defame him all the time. Aru Shah, who he hates, I mean, she's his enemy, the leader of Oldham Council. She's a despicable person. Despicable. The only reason why Raja's not in prison, right, is because they couldn't fit him up with blowing up her car. They tried to. But some, again, public-minded Pakistani resident of Oldham caught the whole incident on CCTV. And it was done by a couple of innit kids driving around in a black Audi, looking a lot like the drug runners that plague Rochdale. They know it wasn't him. He put the video out, let everybody see it. Yeah, why was her car unlocked when these guys came along to blow it up, set it on fire, throw petrol all over it and set it ablaze? Why was her car unlocked? No one's ever done anything about it. And then as soon as the video came out, they sort of, he was no longer being suspected of it, and then, but they never went after anyone else. And then there were people watching the video saying, I know that car, I've had a good idea who them kids are. Police, no. They tried to frame him. And that be done by criminals, did that. Why was that car door open? Why was the car left unlocked when those idiots came along to set it on fire and blow it up? Wouldn't you lock your car? You know, really, you know, as a matter of course, wouldn't you lock your car? Well, it just so happens on that day, somebody just opened the door and just set it on fire. That's what's been going on over there for this guy.
I want to go first and foremost. Secondly, whatever decision they make, I want them to make that decision with us in the public gallery. I will be in the public gallery. I urge every one of you to be also in the public gallery. And if they vote it down, I want them to know that we are watching them vote it down. So
that's called doing it right. That's called not taking any prisoners. That's called holding people accountable. And it's the thing they fear the most. You know, like, it's politics, isn't it? So it's supposed to be out in the open and we're supposed to be able to talk about it. Right? Local politics. The councillors, the Oldham Council set the police on this guy, accusing him of being a harasser, stalker. The councillors won't address him. He'll never get a fair fight against one of them. He will never get a debate, he'll never get an argument. They will avoid him, but they will set the police on him, complaining that he's harassing them. But they won't speak to him. That's how it works.
that's the second reason why I am going, because I'm hoping that if I go, some of you will also have the courage to go and stand alongside me and support those who in the public chamber will be fighting on behalf of it. I've already spoken with Lewis Quigg, the Conservative, that we have been supporting, Dave Arnott, Beth Sharp, Dave's wife, sorry, I forget her name, my sincerest apologies, Alice, I think I've forgotten her name. They will all be supporting it. I would imagine Max Woodvine and the Saddleworth Conservatives will also be supporting it. I have no doubt that the Liberal Democrats will be supporting it also, and this is breaking news in many ways, absolutely unprecedented. Councillor Cameron Guffaw and the Oldham group will also be supporting it. That's right, the Muslim councillors will be standing up, not just voting for it, but they will be standing up and demanding that this is also passed. So 3 Muslim councillors from the Oldham group will be standing up and supporting it. I told you 2 weeks ago, Christine, thank you, Gary. My apologies, Christine, and Christine as well. My apologies to you. They will be the Muslim councillors, even though they've had the fallings out, the differences with the Conservative Party, they will be voting in support of a judge-led inquiry. They agree with me that this dark cloud hanging over our communities, in the sense of our Muslim communities, can only be cleared by people like me, people like them, taking leadership positions on it and moving it forward. So that is what we are all working on together, completely unprecedented. And I think it's important. I think it's important that we stand alongside these people, because they will be harassed and hounded in their own communities by Labour Party foot soldiers, by the cartel foot soldiers, and by those within the Labour Party whose...
Yeah, they've got to look forward to the local criminals having a go at them, being targeted. In fact, by going against the council, the criminals come at you. Not seem if it's nothing to do with Gaza, that's just a broken Labour promise that's been just now picked up and used as a weapon on them. It's like, you guys outside this place, you don't really understand how things go about. I'm telling you, you don't understand how things go about. You give the good people of Rochdale a weapon that they can use against tyranny, and they'll use it. If you want to know what that by-election result was last week, it's like that's what happens when the Labour core doesn't vote for anyone, because that's what they've been instructed to do. There's a huge fifth column that work within the council who've been brainwashed over a long period of time, because you'll never get Labour out of power here, so they're like, oh, good daddy, pays me a good wage. There's thousands of people. The council are the biggest employer in the town, in Rochdale and in Oldham. And those people have been taught to love daddy. If your politics do not align, you don't get to, out loud. If your politics don't align, you don't get to work for the council. Most of them don't align. In the privacy of their own homes, they've got different opinions, but where it matters, where they vote, they'll always go with the council. They'll side with them, because the council will say to their own employees, if we don't win these elections, your jobs are not secure. They frighten their own employees into voting Labour. I mean, when I'd had a heart attack, and I was on a telemetry machine, measuring all these things like this, automatically taking my blood pressure every hour. Like machines next to me. Sat in a corridor for like 14 hours, waiting for a bed. And when I was so exhausted that I had no course of action other than to go home, I'd just suffered a massive heart attack. And the only course of action I had, because of the way that I was being just left in a corridor, was to get in a taxi and go home. And when I had a word with the student doctors to say, hey, you might, just for the sake of, information, when someone's come in who's had a massive heart attack, it's a good idea not to starve them. It's a good idea not to make them dehydrated. It's a good idea not to put them in a chair and leave them for 14 hours, and they're like, well, if you have another heart attack, you're in the right place. I'm like, am I? Really? Student doctor who couldn't grow a proper beard said to me, if you don't like it, vote for Labour in the next general election. If you don't like it, vote Labour, he said to me. I'm like, you're brainwashed, son. I'm glad you're not my doctor.
Interest it is to keep our communities divided. So that is unprecedented. A lot of work has gone on behind the scenes. I'd like to thank Cameron Gaffor, Councillor Wahid and Councillor Irfan for their bravery. I'd like to thank Brian Hoban for his pragmatism. and the fails of independent party, and I would always continue to thank Lewis Quigg and the Conservatives for being there throughout all of this from the outset and stayed the course. Unlike the big team, they have not used it as an election winner and then dropped us. They have stayed the course throughout this. So I'd like to acknowledge all of them. I'm sure Sam Al-Hamdani, Kenyon, Helen Bishop, who I have a history with in terms of we worked together a long time ago, I know they will support a judge-led inquiry. I have no doubt whatsoever. It's been worded very, very carefully. It's been presented in such a way where there's very little, absolutely nothing that anyone can disagree with. Remember,
you know, you've heard of the Rochdale grooming gang scandal, haven't you? Have you ever heard of the Oldham grooming gangs scandal? No, because it's never been reported on. It's the same. It's the same pattern. Many of the same people. Of the gang who got hung out in Rochdale, the leader of the gang worked for Oldham Council. He was an employee. And what did he do for Oldham Council? Safeguarding children. What? Yes. It's like a youth officer for Oldham Council. Now, you won't read that anywhere, but people in Oldham know. You never saw a headline in any of the national papers saying, you know, the guy who led this grooming gang in Rochdale worked for Oldham Council looking after kids. You never read it anywhere, did you? No, because they kept it quiet. See, this is what it's about. Gaza's just a cudgel, just a weapon that's been left lying around. Right, here's their chance to do them for hypocrisy, because they don't campaign on local issues. What do the Labour Party campaign when there isn't a war on? Solidarity with Palestine and Kashmir. They actually print that on the leaflets. Pro-Palestine. They started it. They've betrayed these people. They've betrayed that promise that they always make to these people. So it's like the final straw. It's not the one issue like everyone pretends it is, because they just don't know or don't care or use it themselves to further their own political agenda. They're not interested. They don't want to know. I'm sick to death of these people who give it, oh, Rochdale grooming gang, but you don't give a fuck. You're just using it to, you're actually using the suffering of others. See, you live in the town where things like that happen. You suffer the fallout of it because we've got a bit of a mental health problem in this town. The victims don't just go away. They get re-victimised and then try to live a normal life, which is impossible because they've been left with a debilitating mental illness or had a debilitating mental illness, which is what saw them get targeted in the first place. It's like, it's bad. And there's repercussions on their families, friends, the future relationships all doomed. Bring kids into the world who then become the next generation of vulnerable kids. It's like there are those of us who know and those of us who see, and we've had enough that it's just denied. And those who've enabled it are the cops, the council. They've enabled it. It's not like they've not just ignored it. They've enabled it. If they just ignored it, that'd be bad enough. But enabling it as well, silencing people over it because it makes them look bad. What's that? That's evil. They don't give a shit. As long as they can have the positions of where they can go around and say, oh, I'm councillor. I'm councillor. That's what they care about. They care about doing favours for their friends to appear to be big shots. That's what they're into. They like to be seen as upstanding pillars of the community. when they're not. There's a lot of criminals in this part of the world who double as do-gooders. I could name a few, but hey, I could name some. I could tell you the names of some people who are absolute scroats, but to the outer world, oh, he's such a good lad doing all this work for charity, when it's a matter of known that one since he was a child. Is he still a cokehead? He's still a thief. Oh, suddenly he's a fine upstanding pillar of the community, and he's now friends and, you know, having his picture taken, shaking hands with, you know, the local dignitaries of the Labour Party, the mayor, etc. And you look at that and you know that guy's a scumbag who's trying to clean up his image, to keep the cops off, to keep suspicion away from him. So in the future when someone comes along and say, hey, you know, he's a bad guy, it's like, no, he's a good guy. Have you seen all the work he does for charity? And there are those of us who know. It's like, once a cunt, always a cunt.
The reason why we are taking this forward at this time is Maggie Oliver, about a month or so ago in January.
But I know people who, when they were 20, they had a taste for 12 and 13-year-old girls, and they ended up being police. They ended up joining the police. And then thinking of themselves, oh, I'm an upstanding, highly moral, great member of the local community. And it's like, oh, so you're off 13-year-olds now. Like, do me a favour.
End of January, stood up in a meeting with Andy Burnham at the launch of part 2 of his so-called assurance review inquiry into historical CSE, this one specifically into Rochdale, and she stood up, pointed at Malcolm Newsom and Gary Ridgway, the authors of the Oldham report, and told them to their faces in front of Andy Burnham and the national press that they had been prevented from getting to the truth in Oldham. So the Oldham assurance review was a cover-up. Now the Labour Party councillors themselves are on record for supporting and plauding Maggie Oliver. So if Maggie Oliver is now officially saying that the Oldham review was a cover-up, well then it's in their interest and the people of Oldham's interest to support that. So thank you to Brian, thank you to Cameron, thank you to Lewis and all the others, and Sam and Danny actually, and Helen. There's a cross-party alliance here. I can't thank Councillor Hurley, Ball or Mark Ince because they are now, you know, as I've said to you, they appear to be suggesting in the community that CSE is no longer an issue. It's not an issue on the doorstep. The last reason I want us there, or the next reason, it's not the last, there's a number of other reasons I want us there, is because I have an appreciation of politics, I think. I'd like to say an understanding of the games that the Labour Party play. And I think what the Labour Party will try and do is delay the fails of independent motion so it's not heard until the end. And when it's heard until at the end, they will prevent the Hoban and any of the other councillors from speaking on behalf of it. It's not in the interests of Arusha and the Labour Party to be exposed to a cross-community, cross-party alliance of people of all faiths and all backgrounds from the opposition standing up united as one, speaking on behalf of this issue. So they will try and move directly to the vote and prevent people from speaking.
Now, I sometimes watch Oldham council meetings on the web, on the internet. They live stream them. I sometimes watch them. And when you know there's something interesting coming up, they have a time at the end for members of the general public to come along and air their grievances to the council. So, if the meeting runs over, that cuts into that time. And if the meeting really runs over, it just never happens. It just gets scrubbed and you have to come again. Oldham councillors filibuster. They get up with the phones like this and they'll read an Obama speech off the phone talking about LGBTQ+ rights, climate change and, racism. Right? They'll be there and they'll be reading like this off their phone. That, and they'll get up and they'll give a 5-minute speech about something that's happened in America or something like that. They were a thing in the Guardian say, our rivers are full of sewage, and it's a matter of, fish eat that. Sorry, it's biological. It's like natural. You'll always find it because it's natural food. If you were to start testing the rivers for shit, it's like you would find it, and it's like, why? Well, it's decomposed matter, isn't it? There's animals that eat that. The worst thing that it'll do is cause blooms of algae, because it's a natural thing. It's like human waste is not a toxic. No, it's food for something. It's not that it's the truth of nature. It's food for something. So they spent an hour debating whether they something must be done about this. They spent an hour once talking about shit in the rivers, and not one of them made a point as to say, well, it's fish food. In the end, it just turns into algae, and animals eat that. And then you'll hear other idiots go further than that as to say, algae is destroying all our fine beauty spots. Oh, okay. Something's got to be done about all this algae. It's fucking it up for us. I hate to look out over that pond or that river to see all that natural food in there. You're like, wow, they just talked about that for an hour. And talked about that for an hour, so the guy who's got the grievance, who's coming off the street, who's likely been spending months preparing to speak to the council, well, he gets to sit there and sweat and be like nervous, or else, have a bit of anticipation going on as to how he presents himself, gone to all the effort, and then it's, oh, I'm sorry, no time for you. Meeting adjourned. Oldham Council do that all the time. And they're doing it when they're reading speeches about shit in the rivers off the phones. When they're reading something that you might seem familiar because it's an Obama speech. Obama speeches are all the same. But yeah, they stand up and they give Obama speeches to filibuster so members of the general public don't get to air their grievances to the council. Oh, well, you'll have to come back next time. Oh, sorry. This is the last meeting of the year. You're going to have to reapply from scratch to come and talk to the council. And then, you wait until the new council's been elected, you get in, and then it's like, sorry, we've got no time for you again. We had to have a debate about George Floyd in the Oldham Council chamber. Things like that go on. That's what they do.
I've been in this game long enough and I understand the brutality of the politics, the gangster style politics of Arud Shah and their associates, to know that that is what they will be attempting. So if they attempt that, then I'd rather they attempt that with 100 of us witnessing what they are trying to do. So please,
bingo,
next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. So I will be there. I know the police will be there. The police will be looking for any excuse to arrest any of us. We are not criminals. We've never been criminals, and we will behave impeccably. But I'd like as many of us as possible to be there. I know it's been a long struggle, and I doubt we will get the outcome we want. But as an old Jewish friend of mine, Israeli friend of mine, said to me when I was on my knees in the middle of Manchester one day, Tel Aviv Steve is known as. You've got to keep turning up. Every day you wake up and you've got to keep turning up. And I've took that advice with me, and this is where I am 5 years later. Every day I keep turning up. I will turn up next Wednesday, and I hope as many of you as possible can do. There is a motion from the Oldham group, Cameron Gaffar's group, calling for peace in the Middle East. I've read the motion. I think it's a lovely motion. It's a perfectly worded motion. It doesn't blame anyone or anything like that. It's said, articulated in a really positive way, And I know we are hoping to get Muslims from the Pakistani and Bangladeshi community there also. I want them to witness Cameron and his team support the CSE motion, and likewise I want us to share our humanity with these people and sit alongside them. It's Ramadan, I'll be breaking my fast along with some of the others, so please, if you get there, we are united as one community in our contempt for the Labour Party administration. We'll only take our town back. We will only take our town back united, one community standing alongside the other, believing in each other's causes, if we are ever to hold our Ruth Shah and her associates to account. So I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible next.
Right. You got a fair reflection of the opposition in this part of the world. He's an Oldham lad, he lives about 3 miles away. In the next town, what's he talking about? One community. And politics-wise, you can be all on the same side. For the good of the town, for the good of the people. It's possible, you can do it. But who stops? Who stops the community running itself and having a say in its own destiny? The Labour Party. The Labour Party are the enemy. It's like Galloway, he's campaigning in Rochdale. He's learned this. He knows. I knew this already. So the moment that he said that I first heard that he was going to run, I'm like, oh well, he's going to win anyway. It doesn't matter if there was Gaza going on. He would win anyway in Rochdale. Why? Because people love him. Love him. And he will listen to them. Take on board. So what did the first thing he said? What was the first thing he said after "this is for Gaza"? It is because that's his thing. I do not see eye to eye with George Galloway about Gaza. I have a completely different way of looking at the situation. I'm far more pragmatic on that topic than Mr. Galloway, and it could be said to some degree. From my position, I actually care about the Palestinians more than he does. So where I stand on it. So we don't agree on that. We don't agree at all. But it's a matter of, we don't have to fall out about it. It doesn't make us enemies. And who is the real enemy? Who are the tyrants that run this town who enable all this lawlessness? The Labour Party. The police. It's too much work for them. It's like OCP won't pay for that.
Wednesday. And it is the last one before the election, Gary. It is indeed the last one before the election. And part of me also wants to go there because they bullied and assaulted an old man. I don't care about the politics of the old man. They assaulted an old man in the public gallery. I want to see what these security guards think they can do when there's 100 of us.
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm
a
not
good
an
point.
Man.
That's a good point.
Do not fear them.
That is a good point. That video went out. That old man, he was a little bit excited, a little bit excitable, went in there to tell that council what he thought of them, and he was a thin, little old man, and he did run his mouth a bit. But then at the same time, you've got like Pakistani councillors in that hall saying, tell them security guards to get their hands off him. Let him go. Where, like, the chair of the meeting just went, like, get him. Seize him. Like, you think you've got the right to order your security guards to assault an old man? He wasn't in good health, him. He ended up having a heart attack. He's well, Oldham's not so far away, so it's like he'll have been put on the same ward as I were on, because the way it works, he would have to go all the way to Bury if he had a heart attack. He might have been in my old bed on the ward. So I was on that ward so long, I was like the daddy of it in the end. I was top dog. I was in there for that long. But yeah, he'll have found his way up to Fairfield Hospital into the cardio ward or into acute care. And it's like, was there any reason for those security guards to sort of manhandle him and rough him up? No, they had no right to. They could have just heard him out. Or the Pakistani fellow, the counsellor, who's like, leave him alone. Get your hands off him. He was like, there's actually a procedure for when this happens, because it's basically brought the meeting into disrepute. They close the meeting and finish it behind closed doors. They've actually got rules about when somebody kicks off in the public gallery, and they decided to ignore them and let the security guards rough up an old guy. He ended up having a heart attack in hospital. So that's who you're dealing with. They don't give a shit. It's like, grab hold of him, rough him up, teach him a lesson for running his mouth. That's who you're up against. So I'll put this video out, and it's like, I'd expect, because I always expect it, I always expect that, you know, there's a chance one day that one of the thugs will come knocking on your door and they'll go through with their old threat to have you killed. And I'm like, well, if that's the price, I'll put up a fucking fight, as weak as I am. I'm in as vulnerable a situation as I've ever been in by way of my health, if someone decides to come round and shut my mouth for me, but I'll still put a fight. I'll still put up a fight. I'll never, ever bow down to fucking thugs sent by fucking politicians who ain't shit, who couldn't manage to face me and have an argument, couldn't have a debate, couldn't have a conversation, but it'd be a matter of sort him out. They're thick as shit. They can't handle anything. They handle things very, very badly, which is how that poor old fella's ended up in hospital. It's what it's like. It's like, if you guys out there who seem to think you know, this isn't Banana Republic politics. It's not. It's more like gangsters run it and pretend to be the Labour Party. Gangsters, and most of those who are in it are just patsies. Just deliberately, they've selected and given the green light for people who are just simply rubbish and ineffectual, because rubbish and ineffectual people do not ask questions. They do as they're told, and they like the idea of being a big shot. They don't stand for nothing. Say, please, if I'm the first one who's introduced you to Raja, well, fair enough, because I've introduced George Galloway to him too. So it'll appear that it may well be that he'll now actually get some more support, which would be very welcome. It might just be that he's got himself a very powerful ally, because you know what? If there was a by-election in Oldham and George Galloway ran, he'd have won any of the seats in Oldham as well. He'd have won any seat round here. He'd have won in Blackburn, he'd have won in Burnley, he'd have won in Stockport, he'd have won anywhere. He'd have just won. Have you seen what the Labour Party have become in the northwest of England? Where they've all become one organisation under Andy Burnham. Have you not noticed this going on? Well, there's a backlash. And the Rochdale by-election has sent a clear message to the Labour Party as to where it's like, we can't count on our core vote anymore. Doesn't mean they'll disappear off the face of the earth, but it means that they'll no longer have a majority as to where they can just vote any motion down and get it thrown out. There might actually be some democracy take place. Wow. They might actually listen to other people's opinions. They might actually You know? Give us a say. Oldham Council just announced yesterday the building of like 600 flats right in the centre of the town, where their town centre, they've done to it what they've done to our town centre, and they've abandoned the town, sabotaged it, and have turned it now into what they call a urban residential zone. Not a place of business, not a place of commerce. They're turning our town centres into neighbourhoods. No business going on, just takeaways, the odd pub, because we're losing pubs now in the centre of town. We lost all the pubs out in the sticks. I mean, I'm out in the sticks. I'm not even a mile from the centre of Rochdale here. I can see it from here. And it's like gone. And it's like even the town centre pubs, even they're going under now. There's nowhere to go. There's no businesses. It's like they've pedestrianised the centre of town as well. And it's... You look at it during the day and it's like the Omega Man. There's just no one around. The only people around in the town are the ones who work there, and they invariably are the ones who work for the council. The big business concern in this town is feeding all those council staff in that great big £150 million office they had built. But hey, they've got Starbucks right over the road now, so hey, everything's great. Hey, we've got work, Starbucks. We've made this a better place, surely. Really? It's like you've also got an army of drunks not 200 yards away that you pretend you don't see, because you can't pay people enough to get in their faces because some of them are dangerous. That's what it's become.